it really pains me to see how few people trust media. And Karith, I'm going to go first to Ken, because I used to be on the street with Ken in New York City when I was at Channel 4 and he was at Channel 7. He spent 20 years on the street and then behind the anchor desk. Why do people no longer trust media, whether it's local or national?
I think a lot of it, and by the way, hello, and it's good to see you, my friend. All the years we've known each other, it's nice to be on with you. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that media, especially in a particular urban center like a New York City media center, okay, I think what tends to happen is there's a kind of a groupthink mentality. All of the on-air people know each other. They hang out together. Oftentimes they socialize together. And there is sort of a common political bend that they all have. We, like to say that there's the Upper West Side mentality, and that's because Channel 7 happened to be there on the Upper West Side, and all the other stations are somewhat near there. And I think part of the problem is the idea of being totally impartial and open-minded goes away. There's sort of an ego factor that comes into play with the attitude that we know best, everybody else is a country dolt idiot, and we have to teach them what's what. And I think everybody got their asses handed to them this past election, if you will, when everybody literally bought the Kool-Aid. I don't care which side of the fence you're on, because there's silliness on both sides. And let's just say that there really is, okay? But the people who were in the media who stood there and said, oh, Joe Biden, sharp as a tack, wide awake. This is the most on it. Don't look me in the eye, as Judge Judy says, don't pee on my leg and call it rain. And that's exactly what it was. And I think that was literally the jump the shark moment when America said, you people are full of crap. You're full of crap. Why should we believe you? You sold us on Joe Biden for 6, 9, 10 months. He was great. And it turns out he was practically brain dead. And I think that's what gave people a lot of a disillusionment. Look at MSNBC's numbers went from here to here, literally even before the election.
Yeah, but they've started to recover. But I've got to bring Karith into this because, and I should warn you, Ken, she's a comedian at heart, has had a successful career doing that. But how do you top what he just said? It really does seem like people lost faith because of the crowd.
I'll piggyback on what Ken said and say that not only was the election a complete farce, because 70 to 80% of us are in what Paul Conte calls the League of Reasonable Voters. And so when we're hearing this ridiculous rhetoric from both sides, opposing sides, that's just so extreme, we're like, that's absolute insanity, and that's not where I am. I will also say, though, that it started even before this election cycle. I think it's like it really came down to bare bones in 2020 with COVID. I think there are a lot of people who became very, whatever the opposite of enamored is, with media when they were being told, I mean, it was military grade psychological warfare of if you don't do this, you don't get to participate in life. When we didn't have full information yet, and again, people are entitled to make their own decisions. I'm probably a liberal, meaning like I believe in freedom, right? You should be able to be free to choose what you do to your body in any respect. And when there was messages of if you don't do this, you're a horrible, evil person, then people are like, that doesn't jive with who I am and what I believe in. Why are you telling me this?
I'm going to share with you one of the last things I did when I was in traditional media. I was at Yahoo Finance, and I was able to land an interview with President Trump. He was no longer in office, but this was 2021. And I was told by management I could not refer to him as president, because the protocol was not to refer to a person out of office as president. So I actually pulled video of people at CBS, ABC, NBC from YouTube showing every reporter referring to previous presidents as president. And I said, I think I'm going to refer to him as president. But that was what I faced. And I'm wondering, Karith, I'll go to you. Does it come from management on high? I used to say there was no agenda. And when I was at Fox, I got accused by friends of there being an agenda. But I will tell you, he had some issues, Roger Ailes, but he used to tell us, the reporting staff, not the entertainment side, report the news, don't spin it. Does it come from management? Do they get that message these days?
I'm not an insider enough to say that. I think what Ken said is right on. There is this blanket mentality of we're superior, and our beliefs are what we're going to perpetrate and pass on to the world because we're the experts. And I think that's why I fell in love with media when I was a little girl. I mean, my biggest crushes were Tom Brokaw and Peter Jennings, and I had a girl crush on Connie Chung. I thought they were the smartest, most wonderful people in the world. And I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be this beacon of light and truth and impart information to help make the world a better place. And then when I got into it and I saw what was happening behind the scenes, I was heartbroken.
Let me go local, and especially with you, Ken, because your experience is so rich with local. I felt like I had a bigger impact at local because you could connect with people. Cleveland was the best local market in which I ever worked. I loved working in New York, but in Cleveland, it was a much different story. Local news has lost a lot of trust, but it seems like people in the local community still trust local more than other media. Why?
I agree with that. And I think it's because of the fact that you're speaking the language of the individual on the street. In terms of you're referencing places that they're familiar with, you're talking about personalities that they may have encountered. Whereas when you're on national, it's a whole different story. And I now do both, right? So I'm on Salem News Channel, which is national. And when I write my pieces for Salem, it's one whole mindset. And when I write my things for my show is New Jersey. It's on a New Jersey top to bottom from Rockland County, New York, down to Vineland and south of Philly. So we have to be New Jersey focused, and that's what we pay attention to. And I think that's why people tend to have that sense of credit, or people local tend to have more of a credibility among the locals because of that. And I think also, and boy, oh boy, do I agree with my comrade here, the two of us. Hearing everything you just said, I'm nodding approvingly. Connie Chung was one of my favorites too. Can I give you a 5-second quick aside of a stupid thing that I did? Okay, so when I was 14 years old, I was at Regis High School in Manhattan, and I was an intern at then Channel 9, which was in Times Square. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was a woman named, Elna Seabrooks. Elna Seabrooks. She was an anchor. They used to do like news updates literally sitting on a tabletop desk because they couldn't afford like a real set. That was Channel 9 back then. So this had to be 1985. You weren't born yet, Adam. And so Elna wanted to meet me in Grand Central for a cup of coffee. I'm 14 years old. And I remember meeting her under the big clock, and I'm all excited. I'm in Grand Central, and she has a beautiful Asian lady next to her. And she says, "Let me introduce you to my friend." And I said, "Please, you don't have to introduce me. It's Katie Tong." And it was Connie Chung. And I was never more embarrassed in my life because there's the, we all look alike kind of a thing, right? Now, in fairness, here's the funniest thing. I would later get to know both of them. Mm-hmm. And I was told that they were raised, are they from Cleveland or Cincinnati? I'm forgetting which. They're both from Ohio.
I think Cincinnati, because I don't ever recall hearing Connie Chung from Cleveland.
They were raised literally right down the street from each other. They know each other from childhood. And they said that as they were coming up in the business, they would get confused all the time because it was on the East Coast, at least, we just didn't have that many Asian people represented on the air. And that's a shame. But they both happened to get on the air, one network, one local, at about the same time. And they were both getting that constantly. So now my guilt, of course, was assuaged a little bit. But nonetheless, that's my quick Connie Chung story, only because you mentioned it.
Let me, I want to go back to Karith, because with Inversity Solutions, the business that you founded, as you speak to people nationwide, do they ever bring up whether they're reading news, well, they're not reading newspapers, but whether they're even watching news, whether it be national or local, because we know they're all in trouble?
Well, I'm kind of the bad guy because I discourage people from watching the news now.
Okay. Well, we should let people know, as you said, you were in love with, news, and you had a brief
I was
The
in
View.
love, and I had my heart broken by the media. Well, here's the thing. And what I ask people to do, I challenge and I charge people to, don't just read the headlines, right? Mm-hmm. Go to the 7th and the 8th page of the paper. Don't just watch one network. see what everybody's saying. Because, yes, there is news happening around us, but I also, just for our mental health's sake,
Yeah.
if you were enraptured all the time watching just tragedy after tragedy, and there is a mentality of, we got to keep you hooked. So we're going to keep, giving you the stuff that, feeds your echo chamber, but also keeps you terrified. So you have to see what's coming next. That's terrible for our personal wellness and mental health.
Let me just ask you both a very quick yes or no. Do you trust, I'm just going to do it generically, the media? Ken?
Depending on what you mean by trust. I'm sorry about that. I can't give you a yes or no on that. Do I trust them in general? Trust but verify. How about that?
Okay. Karith?
I concur. I concur. So you know what? I think another thing that happened, and I'm sure you both have seen this, but there was a video that went viral of local TV stations, right, with anchors saying the exact same script.
Yes.
My friend was
that
the
was
main anchor
Sinclair. I
at
think
the
that was
top.
Sinclair.
Yes, it was. It was.
Yeah. Yeah. And so people are like, wait a second, this isn't original. This is somebody's feeding this. This is coming from somewhere, the top somewhere. Nobody knows exactly who somewhere, but like, how are we supposed to believe now what comes out of our anchor's mouth?